One of the most popular genres in comic books today is science fiction. Now, it's not always comic book superheroes in tights, sometimes it's spacemen in space tights. Here to talk about the evolution of the two is Paul Fayter. Paul Fayter, formerly a professor at York University and science fiction expert. Now, Paul, I'm going to take a guess, going to go out on a limb. You read these when you were a kid.
I sure did. In the late 50s and early 60s, I was consuming things like the series of classics illustrated depictions of famous 19th century science fiction by people like H.G. Wells, War of the Worlds, Jules Verne, Going to the Moon.
Okay.
Then you got, again in the late 50s, the Flash comes back, the Silver Age Flash, a scientist who's created as a superhero, recreated.
Right, so there's classics, you read some of the old stuff, new stuff, but so saying that, I'm guessing that the origin of comics and science fiction kind of coming together predates you reading books in your PJs around a fire or something. Where did they kind of touch in the middle?
The most immediate place is with the science fiction pulp magazines that predated the comic book in its modern American form.
And that was around...
We're talking the 1920s.
Okay.
Somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. This is from 1928, the Amazing Stories from August 1928. The artist is Frank Paul, and that's important in a number of ways. It's got the very first Buck Rogers in the 25th century, a future-oriented science fiction story. So that pulp character was something that was somebody who inspired people who read it, including Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, the creators of Superman.
Right.
There were all sorts of people who worked for Hugo Gernsback, who was a publisher, editors, other publishers, writers, artists, and so on, who ended up migrating from the pulps into the world of comic books. And you can see that especially in the cover depictions.
Okay, so the people who kind of worked on this, they saw comics as the new medium for popular culture. And so, and like you said, though, Buck Rogers was in the pulp. You referenced him. We all know Buck Rogers is a comic book as well. Now, did they just take this idea? Did someone buy the idea and turn it into their own comic, or?
If you were dealing in popular culture at that time, you wanted to get a syndicated strip in the newspapers.
Okay.
We're talking about the United States in the 20s and into the 30s and the time of Depression and so on. Buck Rogers ended up migrating to the newspaper strip within a year.
Oh, okay.
It took a while. This is from 1940. It took a while before he entered the world of comic books. Mm-hmm. He had all sorts of imitators, such as Flash Gordon, of course. These people had pulps, comics, radio serials, movie serials, and so on.
And so when it did get adapted, though, it blew up.
It was, if you mean by blow up, becoming really popular.
I do.
That's right. Superman is a science fiction icon, not only just with comic books. He was, of course, an alien from the doomed planet of Krypton coming to Earth. Very science fiction-y in all sorts of stories.
Well, with the science fiction boom in comics and originating in pulps, you can see it's been there since the beginning. And with the steamrolling progress now, you know it's going to stick around.